Confucius once said, "We all have two lives. The second one starts when you realize you only have one." When and why did your second life begin? I realized I was the crazy ex and immediately switched that shit around. Last week, a coworker had a gigantic heart attack and instantly died right there in the cafeteria. I didn't know him, so while it was a horrible thing to witness, I'll eventually get over it. What shook me more was the fact he was only in his early 20s, just about younger than me, and wasn't much more overweight than I am. Seeing firsthand how suddenly all my bad decisions can just erase me from existence, and the fact I've had a couple of small chest pains and ignored them in the past. I threw out everything remotely sugary the instant I got home. It didn't happen in front of me, but the guy who sat behind me at work was in his early 30s and died this way. He was a very heavy smoker, constantly eating junk food, to the point that he actually would take breaks he wasn't entitled to in order to snag food from the cafeteria and eat at his desk. Despite the fact that my values didn't really align with his, I was happy for him because he was looking forward to his son being born. He loved his son and his baby mama, who he was going to marry in another few months. He died a month before his new child was born, without ever having married. A dear friend got cancer. Out of the blue and bad. We were 29 and both just hitting our strides in life and work. She was dead 18 months later. It absolutely rocked me to my core how fragile life is. A close friend of mine got diagnoses with acute leukemia this past weekend, and this really put everything into perspective. We're 20 and studying engineering, and it's just crazy how suddenly everything can go downhill. January 13, 2018. I was in Honolulu, Hawaii during the false alarm ballistic missile strike. I called my parents to say goodbye and waited for the impact in the basement of our hotel with my fiancé. It took way too long for them to correct the mistake and let people know it was a false alarm. We were visibly shaken all day, and upon returning I decided then that I would request 3 months off work for my honeymoon instead of 2 weeks. Traveled the world and remembered how important family is compared to work. I still need to remind myself about it every so often, though, because the grind gets to you. My father-in-law slept through the false alarm. Lol. So 1 week after being told I had prostate cancer at 47, I decided I needed to get fitter and healthier, but honestly, my heart wasn't in it and I was on the verge of depression. It's 5:40 a.m. and I am idly drinking tea, before going to the gym, but I am 50-50 about going back to bed, and pretty much giving up on life. Scrolling down Facebook, I see the quote, "A man has two lives, one before he realizes he is mortal and one after." I stared at it like it was a revelation. Something I can't describe lifted in me. I drained my tea and went to the gym. Almost exactly 1 year later I am fit. Officially, I have lost 15 kilograms, with another 13 to go. And 6 mornings a week I row a 10K on a Concept 2 rowing machine, and go to the gym dong weights once a week. My last scan showed the cancer hasn't changed one bit in a year, and now will be monitored for 2 years to see if it's stable. If I do need to have it removed, I am in the best shape for a successful op. It's no exaggeration to say this quote changed my life. When I graduated high school and realized I had no skills, no interesting hobbies, nothing interesting about myself, and that it was no wonder I struggled so much with dating. Spent the last few years changing that. After having a stroke, I became much more determined to do stuff. I'm much more aware that YOLO. Mine isn't intense as some of these other stories, but here it goes. I played guitar for the last 5 years and it has become one of my biggest passions. 6 weeks ago I lost my footing while climbing a platform, and I'm fairly certain I have permanent tendon damage in my left hand. It didn't sink in what exactly had happened until I was in my car after the doctor's appointment. I would now spend more of my life with this faulty left hand than when it was fine. This is now the rest of my one life. Passion's gone, zero activity in my life because I'm afraid of everything, and slightly more useless than before. I miss the ignorance. It was at really low point in my life. I didn't think things could get worse. So many things going wrong and so many bad choices being made. I was at a point where ending it all was the only option I could see. Upon cutting into my wrist, everything was clear. It could be worse and it will be, but shit, I don't want to die. 56 internal stitches, 15 external, and I'm still here. Things did get worse, but then they got amazing. I had a conversation with my dad about winning the lottery. He asked me if I would go to film school if money wasn't an issue. I, of course, answered affirmatively. He told me to go for it. So I fucking did. Here I am in my first semester as a film student, living the life I want to. Life is good, RN. I'm not making compromises. I got psychological help. I used to think that life just sucked for everyone and the trick was to fake your way through it. That faking was what I thought other people's happiness was. From puberty to after my 40th, I lived where every moment of happiness was weighed down by an ever-present depression and lack of self-esteem. I know this is small compared to what most people go through in life, and that's exactly the mentality that kept me from getting help. Took a bit, but after talking with a counselor once a week for a few months, being referred to a psychiatrist with initial diagnosis, and working with my psychiatrist to find medicines that work, I finally feel what I can only assume is normal. I wake up most days with an underlying happiness that's never been there before. Moments with my kids are not darkened by thoughts that I don't deserve them or that they wouldn't love me if they knew me. Don't be like me. Even if your mountain seems small compared to your view of the mountain others are climbing, that doesn't mean you couldn't use some help finding the right path. To quote an old man from my childhood, it's dangerous out there. I suppose when I turned 20. Prior to that, I had never thought past that age. Spent a long time stuck in a "now what?" phase, trying to not have an existential crisis. Eventually went to college, got a degree, and now work in the field I studied for. Battled depression and won, and found some of the things I was looking for in life. Starting to figure out what I want from life and what it's going to take to get there. So I guess I started my second life when I got out of my age 20 funk. When I quit my job 5 years ago and biked across the country. The second I finished, I realized that I was forever going to look at life differently. I had been working an absolutely horrendous job, high stress, low pay, terrible hours, all because I needed the experience it gave me for my career. At some point I realized, I don't have to be this miserable. Rage quit, bought a bicycle, and cycled across the continental US for 2 months. Found my center and my confidence and started treating myself better. Met some of the most interesting, most batshit crazy, and most honorable people along the way. Best decision I ever made, and I still treat myself with the respect I feel I deserve. I had a woodworking accident just over 2 years ago. Wasn't huge. I lost my left index finger, but it kind of punched me in the gut. Makes you realize you aren't invincible. I was 23 in October 2011. Got fired from my store manager position at GameStop on May 2, 2011. Then my son was born on May 15, 2011 to a girl I got pregnant 3 months into the relationship. My friends I rented a house with didn't want to live with a kid, so they all agreed to end the lease and I had to move back home with my dad, girlfriend and new baby in tow. With no degree and severely overestimating how impressive being a retail general manager is, I had taken a job working swing shift at a bindery putting inserts into magazines and just had completely shut down emotionally and was going through the motions. One night around 2 a.m. I got really angry at myself and overwhelmed with despair on my son's behalf. I looked at him sleeping in his ratty pack and play and thought of his Christmases, his birthdays, his field trips, a collection of future memories where I would disappoint him and he'd never have the life he would deserve because of this piece of shit father who just couldn't do anything right. It wasn't fair to him. Something just clicked, and I was determined to do something. I had a few customers who had recommended I apply for a local insurance company that had a call center in the area. I applied for several positions they had open and just put my all into my resume and cover letter and went to bed, feeling like this would be a turning point. I got a job in sales, got a shitty apartment, then a nice one, got a job in claims, bought a house. 10 years later I'm still with the woman I got pregnant 3 months into dating and honestly cannot believe how lucky I am. My kids, girl came in 2012, are spoiled, and while we aren't wealthy, we aren't living in my bedroom at my dad's house, and I'd say we're solidly lower middle class. My son completely changed our lives that night. And whenever I get discouraged I look at him and remember that even a screw-up like me can get stuff done when the chips are down, and we've managed to survive every potentially derailing disaster since. Meeting the woman who would become my wife. I had been in numerous crappy relationships, mostly because I was childish, lazy, and selfish, and was thoroughly unemployed with only a GED to my name. I had been taking classes at our local community college, but had no specific goal. I was used to ex-girlfriends telling me to get a job and grow up, but this woman was different. She pushed me, but in a loving way. She challenged me to be my best. We got married right after I got my master's degree. Absolutely none of what I have achieved would have happened without her, and I am thankful and grateful for this second life. I'd buried most of my family, all grandparents, father and brother, by 24. I'm not sure I remember the first life. It hasn't yet. I'm still young with the dumb mentality that I'm immortal. In less than 3 months, got divorced, got fired from work, lost a grandparent and a parent, and I have 2 small kids. Going on the 4th month and have put in over 200 applications. Only nibbles and no job offers from reputable places. Did have someone set up a fake interview as an attempt for sex trafficking, so please be care of that, people. My second life is starting between everything, now and near future. Just have to find all the puzzle pieces. When I lost a wife and daughter. The first few months I don't even remember, but I do remember when I started to heal. It was a long road, but once I set my sights on going back to school to become a lawyer, I really began to start to heal. This Friday I will be sworn in as an attorney. My sophomore year in high school. A student 2 grades above me committed suicide at 4 a.m. on Monday morning. I came into school hearing people whispering, and I thought it was just high school drama and rumors. First hour started. The teacher walked in, told the class a student had passed away. I thought it was a joke. I knew the name. I knew his sister. I played soccer with her for years. As the day continued, it became more and more apparent that he was really gone. The whole school's atmosphere changed. People that didn't even know him were crying in the halls. Kids I had known since kindergarten were missing from school, mourning his passing. I came home that day and just sobbed in my room. It didn't seem real, and honestly, it still doesn't. I attended his funeral service. Teachers from elementary school through high school attended. Kids I hadn't seen in the past 5 years were there to support his family and friends. His cousins got up in front of everyone at the funeral and cried while sharing their stories of him. I didn't know him well, honestly. I just knew his sister. When we were younger, we attended the same church together, but it still hurt knowing that he was gone. Someone I knew since I was little. After that I realized that I had to keep living. Depression had been controlling my life for the years beforehand, and I was close to taking my life on several occasions. But after this, I realized how many people would be devastated. How many people I had to stay here for. It's still hard sometimes, but I don't want to leave this world anymore. I still think about him sometimes. I hope he's in a better place now. Second life started the day I had my first heart attack. I've had 4, and let me tell you what, life is precious to everyone. I don't need anybody's bullshit anymore. I take my second one to make sure my kids understand how to make the right choices and respect life for what it is. When I held the hand of a dying woman involved in a double tractor-trailer semi versus a Ford Focus collision. She was missing the back of her head. She was my age and had 2 twin girls. I held her as she took her last breath, begging her to open her eyes. That's when I realized I had lived through an ectopic pregnancy in 2011 that caused me to die twice and a septic gallbladder in 2013 to be there for this woman. That's when my life began. Failed suicide attempt, followed by the only person I thought I trusted and respected me, died a painful, unavoidable death. My second life started when I stopped caring about what the world thinks. Came out to family, went back to school, got some good gigs in my industry. Life still has its downs, but pushing through feels rewarding. The username gives it away, but that's not my sole reason for living my life, just a big part. Gotta chase your dreams and work hard towards what you really believe in. When I turned 21, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was officially considered an adult to pretty much everyone in the world, and life was moving so fast. Made me realize I don't want to look back and regret anything. Now I work harder, laugh harder, eat healthier, exercise daily, and remember to always enjoy the moment. On September 18, my brother-in-law was walking to work. He was hit by a car while crossing the road. We agonized over what was happening while he was in hospital for 2 weeks, not sure if he'd wake up again. We finally decided as a family that given the brain damage, he would not live a quality life, likely vegetative, and would have to pull life support. He was an organ donor, so there's some consolation that he may have saved others' lives. But it was only last week that we watched him pass. I had no idea the body becomes so waxen. He was only 25, the baby brother, our third musketeer. It hurts so much. I think this is my defining moment, but damn if it doesn't hurt so much. I don't know how to use this to live a more fulfilling life. It just hurts. August 2019. I was depressed for a long while, still am, and instead of seeking help decided to wallow in self-pity. My wake-up call came when I found that I failed an entire semester, and I realized that if I continued with my free fall I'd end up in the same place I was afraid of ending up. I am seeking help with my mind, took a semester off and currently working in a lab. Most days suck, but I'd say I'm genuinely smiling more nowadays. After taking shrooms for the first time. Not in a joking way either. Anyone who has done them properly will tell you that it completely changes the way you think about things in the world. I'm a much kinder person, but more importantly, I'm so much more open to trying new things. Of course, please do your own research before trying it.